Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of By the Numbers. I'm your host Richard Lewis, he's Duncan Thorin Shield, Sam's pressing the buttons. It's just business as usual really. And if you thought the last episode was a fucking slow news week, fucking hell we're struggling today. I almost thought like we should just not do it. Because like straight up like this is going to be stretched unbelievably thin. I think we got about 3 stories to talk about.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, Rich, when you've set the reasonable expectation that something's going to happen and you're an industry professional, I believe you should deliver on it, unlike Refresh, who've cancelled Blast Portugal in doing so, violating everything they promised within their interviews, quite frankly, looking like they didn't have a business plan. And if you look at the order of things, making themselves seem incompetent.
I like it. 4 stories we've got to talk about now. Good job, Duncan.
And also mentioned
you brought a story.
In the first minute this time.
Yeah, I know. It's our greatest hits in many ways. So look, obviously, shout out to the sponsors, and they're going to be giving away a factory new Ursa Slaughter. Now, again, I'm not a skin guy. I'm led to believe that's a nice skin.
I know Sergeant Slaughter. He was pretty good.
He was.
Another reference from 30 years ago. I've ruined myself by actually noticing that.
Yeah.
I should never have noticed that trend of how the fact everything is from up to about 95. That's the
What was
range.
the one from Robot Wars where they basically stole our wrestler's name? But was it Sergeant Slaughter? What do they call the robot? But from Robot Wars, it was like General Slaughter or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was Sir Killerbot.
Yeah,
That was a very famous.
Sergeant Bash.
Yeah.
People are saying it might be him.
Sergeant Bash, yeah, and then
Well, I could never understand it.
there was a slaughter in there.
Yeah, I
At
remember
least,
a
like,
Slaughter,
so the
Yeah.
most famous one, the cool one at least, was like an actual like axe thing, you know, and the rest of it was the ones I never understood was like
That
the
was
most
circular,
basic
yeah.
design that you could basically win with is you just have some sort of fucking circular saw that just has
Yeah.
wheels, and then unsurprisingly, some daft little cunt and his dad who's made one that's just like. Look, ours has a little thing that pops out. It's like, well, I've got a circular saw, you daft cunt. I tell that shit
Honestly,
up.
I just want
to.
you have to say, right, like the people who brought in the robots that just had the flippers.
Oh
Yeah.
man, get
Like
me out.
all it
No
did was flip
weapons.
you
No
over.
weapons,
Like
yeah, I know.
they were just trying to fucking cheese it. Like fuck those cunts.
Like, who do you think you're fighting? Turtles, you dumb
Yeah,
fuck.
exactly.
You're fighting
No,
other
that was
robots.
it.
You have to destroy them.
Straight
Yeah, I know.
count.
I'd have a straight flamethrower, man.
Yeah. No, obviously, yeah. You had.
My
You
kid
did.
did
You
come
had
in with no fucking eyebrows on.
You just have loads of drill bits coming out of it. That's what I'd have, but surrounded in rotating drill bits, wherever you go.
I'd like to see Sam's entry. Sorry, Mr. Davies, we can't actually enter your nail bomb like suicide bot. This is actually something of a hazard.
But it's one though.
I know exactly.
yeah, Craig Charles looking like fucking pinhead.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Smashed his pipe.
Robot was right. Anyway, you meth. But anyway, and just to
Did
link.
you see, by the way, just to
All right, we're still going to robot wars. No problem. Let's do it. Fucking, I'm down. Whatever.
A great
Yeah.
meme I saw in line of the Hellraiser one is someone had a picture, right, where it was that thing, that Belle Delphine's bathwater, and then it just showed all the fucking Cenobites from Hellraiser, and they go, you opened it, so we came. It's like, that's pure banter, whoever came up with that. That is pure banter.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, like Linkin Robot Wars, what we were talking about at the start of the show about cancerous fandoms. Like some of the fucking man children. That was the sign.
Wasn't it?
That was the sign of impending societal collapse. Because I remember like distinctly there'd be episodes, you know, where there'd be like some 40-year-old fucking virgin whose like robot had just got wrecked by some 12-year-old kid, and like they just wouldn't be able to handle the defeat. Like they just couldn't take it. Like
Oh, he's
Craig
been
Charles.
flipped.
Yeah,
Fuck
yeah,
you.
Craig Charles. Well, you know, you had all them, you had that nail bomb and all those bits, yeah, but you just got flipped by a 12-year-old kid. How do you feel? And like just some fucking incel, like full mauled in, like absolutely out of his mind,
I
spewing the rain,
spewing.
yeah, full spewing. Brilliant, like it was perfect. Hell of a show. They should bring it back. Anyway, as we said, slow news week.
You have to realise that is, by the way, legit my secret dream for the future of esports.
What
It's
Robot was?
The
Craig
easiest
Charles.
gig ever is where it's just me and you on Dave doing a Mystery Science 3000 style review of old shows from the 90s.
Straight to Dave.
Biker
Straight
Girl, all
to
of them.
Dave.
Exactly.
From
Oh, I'm not saying it's
TBS
gonna- yeah, it's
to
not going to be a good
Dave.
TV channel, of course.
You're the only thing that
fuck, you know.
first exclusively premieres on Dave.
Exactly.
The only thing that
Exactly.
isn't a real.
I was
Right.
realistic
Dave.
with who we were pitching it to, you know.
No, that's fair. Like that's fair. Like we'll probably be doing that in
Oh,
about 10
Dave.
years. You have got a point. Like Esports memories. Remember us? They were like fucking tweed jackets on or something. God, that'd be awful. Anyway, right, let's do it. Let's get some of these news stories.
There's actually more stuff than you remember, though, because there's the Blast Portugal one. There's one.
Right, well, come on then. You got a hard on for the Blast Portugal. I'd totally forgotten about it because it's like, let me explain why I didn't even put it down in the doc when I was like looking at the stories to talk about on the show. Well, I mean, look, it just makes sense. Like I think Portugal has like a really good esports scene in the sense that it's it's the classic. The fans will turn up.
Speaking of mental fandoms,
no, that Portuguese are great. I mean, the XL party lands that we used to have in Source were always like pretty well received, pretty well attended. Sort of again walk that line between it was a LAN and there'd be some competitive elements there, but typically it was more about having a party and everything else. And the fans were great. Never had any issues. They even though there was like Portuguese teams playing in Source, if you remember, there were some vaguely competitive Portuguese players and Portuguese lineups, including Fragmasters, Sapphire. Back in the day, which had some good players on it. But they never got carried away. They always knew that, they're probably not, you might get a top 3, but generally if a very games or whoever the fuck decides to attend, you're going to get battered. And they would all get behind the team that won. They were good lands. And, I think it's an underserved region, but I think it's an underserved region for a reason. If you've ever been to Portugal, I have many times. It's a hell of a place. The infrastructure is still a bit lacking for like networking and in terms of cabling and internet, and technical problems aren't something that doesn't happen often. They're quite frequent, and you're just not gonna, because of the way the economics of it works, you're just not gonna make money from serving to that region. I mean, whenever we talk about underserved regions in esports, right, we're talking about the regions that aren't profitable, basically. And I just think it's, it's sort of a no-brainer. Like, I almost don't even, like, I can't blame the Blast. They're going through sort of changes. They really need to start cutting back and sort of getting a bit more cash efficient. They must have lost a fuck ton of money on the Blast LA.
It said that, well, this is for last year, but just to corroborate that, it said in the information when the financial receipts or whatever reports got brought out for last year that they'd lost, Refresh the company had losses of $7 million roughly.
Yeah,
for last
I mean,
year
that's
alone. So you can imagine, again, for people who don't know, you don't make money putting on events like this typically. So if you're running a lot of events, and obviously they were planning on running like 8 tournaments this year or something, that's gonna fucking cost you a lot. So it doesn't matter that this is the ultimate trick of esports, isn't it? It doesn't matter how much money you lose, as long as the crowd is going mad in the stadium, people's brains go like this. Well, there was crowd in the stadium, they must have made loads off that and then do this. It's like, I saw a thing today, just as a quick aside, right? Where I make the mistake, right, of doing this, where what happens is on Reddit, I always sign up to subreddits because I'm interested in the topic and I just want it in my feed, like when the new information comes out, I don't want to have to hunt that interview down. But then I'll always make the inevitable mistake of seeing an interesting piece of news and then seeing there's some comments and going, I'll have a click on this. And even though esports should have trained me, well, what are you going to see there? It's just a bunch of people who don't know any more than you, in fact, maybe even less, just speculating on nothing. But I always do it for the ones that are my like hobbyist interest. And then I'm always disappointed when I find the same experience all over the internet, which is it's a bunch of people who don't know anything, just speculating out their asses. So I'll give you a quick example of how everyone is in every field. Right, because I've made the mistake of following the Oasis subreddit, right? Just because I want to know if either of those ever put any music out. I don't want to have to hunt them down or whatever. I just want to see it's on my thread. So if you ever go in there, by the way, it's an absolute train wreck. Like, as opposed to what you would expect naively, like, this must be a group of people who like all the members of Oasis and appreciate all their musical output. No. The whole place is now divided into a religious war over whether people prefer Noel or Liam Gallagher, even though they are literally fandoms. And again, like, really, I can't imagine a world in which you could dislike either if you like one personally, but that's just me, right? Yeah. So anyway, in the thread, right, people were talking about the fact that like, Noel Gallagher said he'll sell the Masters to Oasis to the highest bidder. And then some random guy just goes like, imagine if Liam buys it, which, by the way, if you know anything about where Liam Gallagher's probably at financially, that is a ludicrous premise. But morons were all upvoted for saying like, What do you mean? It's ridiculous he could buy them. Haven't you seen him sell out arenas? And it's like, how much do you guys think they make from selling one arena? Like, that's the artist as well, by the way. The artist who gets the smallest cut of everyone. Like, the idea that selling out anywhere is getting him a lot of money. Like, people don't live in the real world. That's like the 70s you guys are thinking of. Like, it's the same with esports tournaments, though. Like, you are not going to make much. It doesn't matter how many people are in the crowd. You can have 50,000 people in the crowd. What do you think you're making from that? Very little. So I get what you mean. It makes perfect sense. But the point is, Richard, I'm not the one who went out there swinging my big dick in all the fucking interviews. Telling everyone that it didn't matter that, Australia skipped tournaments because everyone would play 5 out of 7 tournaments. There will no longer be 7 tournaments. Like, that's a pretty big deal to me, especially when you're the company that was basically angling to take over CS. And you've already fucked up step 1. Your first ever chance at running a circuit. You've already fucked it up. What? You're only running 2-day events.
Yeah, look, I know what you're saying. I'll fucking bang on the blast all fucking day. I don't give a fuck. I'll bang on refresh all day. Again, this is like a classic thing where it's like you have to sort of learn humility as you go along. And for example, a famous example I'm sure we've talked about before is like, remember when Gfinity first came in to doing events, and remember they said to us, we're going to knock it out the park, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. No one's going to have seen anything like this before. They get into the event and it's all going wrong, and they're like, holy fucking shit, we just got to get this event over the line, let alone like innovate and fucking and it's like they learned from that, like, you really got to walk before you can fucking fly. Refresh, they're not the kind of people that are going to actually be humble and kind of learn. So it's great to give them some licks, but in terms of if they ever want to sort of stabilize and get to get to a point where they can run a profitable circuit, you got to eschew events like that. It sucks for the Portuguese fans, but it's just a reality. There's just no money going to be coming out of that region for a while, and that's why international tournament organizers aren't going to be placing tournaments in Portugal, despite the fact, it's a great location in a lot of ways. But unfortunately, from an infrastructure perspective, it's just a little bit too far behind. And because, of course, as well, with everything that happened with the Eurozone, economically, because you have, right, so just to link it to something I'm working on at the moment, right? The past few weeks, before I get into the NIP thing, which like I said, I've been laying all the parts of the NIP story out, but I'm doing, I've been transcribing interviews from people who work in the Overwatch League at all levels. So I'm doing like a real deep dive sort of behind the scenes of the Overwatch League, which is going to be super popular. All of the incels over on competitive Overwatch are going to love that. He just made up hundreds of quotes. He's made it all up. He must be making it up. He doesn't have this level of access. No.
The best was the one where the guy implied that because you didn't name who the source was, like,
classic.
That it must just be like here's the real statement the guy was trying to make. He was trying to imply, because you'd said it was an anonymous source, which just means it's a relevant source, but it's anonymous. They were trying to imply, like, could be his fucking milkman or something like that. I mean, technically, I guess, but what would the fucking relevance be? The sad thing about that, right, is the real reason why those people, this is what a fan might not get, are contemptible, is because the entire, doesn't even need to be stated, given premise of being a journalist who uses anonymous sources is saying, I am literally willing to put my entire track record on the line. I'm basically like one of those cops in America where there's those weird laws where, like in the movie Insomnia, where the whole reason the main cop, Al Pacino, doesn't want to get caught is because then all of his cases will get reviewed and potentially those people will be put back on the street, because if it's deemed that he fixed evidence or something in one case,
the rest will get overturned.
Exactly. It's the same premise. Like, the whole point is we don't have to literally debate with you why every single quote's right. We're gambling it all. The second any of it comes out and he's shown to have lied or proven that he made stuff up, then everything is in question. By the way, rightly so, even though a lot of it independently could be correct. Yeah, that was the premise that was holding it all together. So I don't think fans realize, like, going with the angle of like, maybe you're just lying. It's like, you're going to need a lot of evidence to come with them, because that's an extremely important statement to make against someone whose entire premise is, I'm not lying.
So what I was doing was I'm breaking down the money aspects of it, because lots of people that are in the league basically sort of saying, like, it definitely hasn't been the bill of goods we were sold, right? Like, we're not making money, we're actually hemorrhaging cash. So I went in and I wanted and I went back to that fucking Morgan Stanley report, right? The famous,
my favorite.
yeah,
the one
the famous
I wish
mythical one.
so badly. I've said this so many times. I know for legal reasons why nobody with any kind of clout can leak that sort of a thing. You'll probably instantly fucked up. But it's the one of all the numbers I've ever seen behind the scenes, which is the one I just wish so badly it was leaked. I would love for fans to see what that was like.
I'm going to include some of it in the report because I think it's relevant from a historical perspective, and it's a 2017 report now. People have already bought in. I don't think
the projection was the part that killed me, mate. I mean, first of all, the base case was a lie, but the projection is even back then. This is the sad thing. People will think, but back then, or maybe back then, that was reasonable. It wasn't. I remember reading this back then and thinking, like, either, and this was possible. I left a little 10% chance, right? Maybe there's some secret thing I don't know about the Overwatch League that actually means there's some mechanism whereby it's going to be straight fire and go off. But if it isn't, then this is an absolute lie. It's a barefaced lie.
Yeah.
Like you would have had to even cook the original number you started with to get to where this lie was. That's how outrageous it was.
So, and this is how it links to what we're talking about with the blast, right? So, one of the things in this report was that you're going to make money off ticket sales from events, and in their case that they put forward to all these venture capitalists to invest in the Overwatch League, they said there would be 8 mini tournaments a year, which would attract 18,000 live attendees. 18,000 live attendees for 3 days at a time, 8 times a year, and they would all be paying $25 a ticket. Right now,
think of the scale of that.
Right now, let me put it in some context for everybody. In South Korea, when they had the World Finals for League of Legends in the country where it is unquestionably the most popular game, they had 23,000 for the finals in a stadium. You know, you're not doing that 8 times a year with the most popular video game. And if you want to go back 2 years when they had it at the Staples, it was only was it 11,000 in the end?
It wasn't that many. Like, here's the thing: it looked great inside the arena, but like every arena, you know, like I'm gonna guess at least a fourth was cut off for the stage, you know, that sort of thing. And then even then, you know, you saw the odd empty seat.
Yeah. So the idea ever.
And remember, Overwatch is nowhere close in terms of viewership.
No, of course
live
not,
viewership as League of Legends. You know, it's not even on that level.
So and they considered in this report like $25 to be like of good. That's great value for tickets. That's like you're not selling a $25 ticket in Portugal. You're not selling a $25 ticket in most of the world, honestly. It's just
about only America. I think of that you'd get away with that for.
Yeah, and it would have to be in esports. It would have to be a special event. Like I don't mind paying like $50, $80 for like a concert ticket or something like that, right? But $25 for an esports event, when you consider the demographic, I think we're still a ways from that being the norm, so to speak. And very often when you see all these record-breaking numbers being announced, what they're not telling you is the tickets were either super cheap, discounted in some way, or free. You know, like that's what they don't tell you. So,
by the way, one thing that does drive me a bit nuts, and I realize this is never going to change just for esports. I'm sure every event in the world scams a little bit like this, but I do get tilted when I see events brag about their event being sold out, and I know they gave like 1,000 tickets away for free.
Well, again, Overwatch did that for Dallas, right? It was like there was a
because what you're doing there is the live omission. You're making the person believe 10,000 tickets were sold. It's like you make them believe it was the 10,000. You haven't said it explicitly. You are using misdirection, but to me, it's a lie as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was like, what was it they did for the Dallas homestand event thing where it was like you could go into a GameStop round the corner, buy like a $5, not even a $5, like buy a chocolate bar, any purchase, and you got a free ticket. So it's like, you know, and then they're going, hey, look, we sold out for 2 days back to back. First of all, first live event in a while for Overwatch. Second of all, it's in a region where esports is popping off. Third,
and they're 2 of the most popular teams is the Dallas one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
2 of the most absolute popular teams in the league.
Yeah, 2 most popular teams in the league. And then on top of that, you also had this deal going with GameStop, a GameStop literally around the corner from the venue, where you can go and get like a ticket effectively for free because they were literally giving them away with any purchase. And obviously, as we know in the Overwatch and indeed in any esports thing, the amount of if you think FIFA are bad for giving away free fucking tickets, or UEFA are bad for giving away free fucking tickets for football events, you should see what the percentage is in esports. It's fucking everyone's friend, everybody, all the super fans. You got to get them there. So the idea that the Blast and Refresh were ever going to make money on an event in Portugal is absurd. So cutting it from the tour makes sense to me. The question then becomes, were any promises made at the time? You see, this is what I don't know, so I'll ask you. Were any promises made at the time that was going to be definitely on the calendar? People might have been getting ready for it the following year or whatever, or was it just because the one thing I'll say about the circuit is, I don't think it's particularly well planned out in advance. We still don't know what's going on next year. We know they're expanding. We don't know what that looks like. And every time they drop an event, it's not really a circuit, is it? What they're doing is they find a major city in the world and they send a logistical team out there and they go, yeah, we can do this and probably turn a profit. And they go, yep, well, next stop on the tour is Moscow. And you're like, wait, if it was a tour, you would have this all planned through the year and you will be announcing things in advance. What you mean is you found a cheap stadium in a big city, you've crunched the numbers and you think you can turn a profit on it. That's what it really is
in light of the fact that they publicly said the whole thing of everyone will play 5 events. And remember, the whole premise they added, again, you're right, they didn't even say this at the beginning, they added it as they went, was that there'd be this big final in Copenhagen. You know what's so suspicious about all of this, Richard, is that every single thing they add comes right after criticism for not having that thing. So, for example, when everyone said about Blast right after they'd done a whole bunch coming into this year, problem with Blast, of course, is too many events. It's not a serious event. No, there'll be a grand finals with bigger prize money that this circuit will build into for the teams that go. All right, interesting. There's a reason why that would make sense. Thing is, though, closed circuit, isn't it? Nowhere to qualify. No, we're actually going to fuck up that whole 5 out of 7 thing by allowing local teams to play in events, even though logically and logistically, that should be the teams that we've contracted so they can play their 5 out of 7 event. It's every time. It's Riot style, where if you don't know, Riot literally, as a company, instantly meet the requirements of the qualities that make up a narcissist, because they can never admit they're wrong. When they do something wrong, it's your fault that they did it. When they make a correction to what they did wrong, it was never wrong in the first place. They'd already, before you told them it was wrong, understood it was wrong, even though it's still not quite wrong. It was just misguided and a mistake, and they've corrected it. And actually, you should give them credit, because even though you're the reason they changed it, they were already planning on changing it anyway. Therefore, why should you get it? It's pure. It's the level of mental gymnastics they'll go through to never appear wrong, as far as I can tell, internally as well. It makes you just have no hope for the future. So even though Blast haven't done anything egregious, they've certainly started down this path with the approach they take.
Yeah, it sort of links again to this whole fandom thing. I think there's this weird thing going on just in big companies in general, where it's we're moving away from, I don't know, I'd say 10 years ago, the prescribed plan with PR was always you kill a problem with silence. You either don't address it, or if you do address it, you put out a mea culpa, you apologize unreservedly, and you just power through with a bit of contrition and transparency. These days, what you have is this situation where if you're a big games developer, you can never be wrong. You can never be wrong. Activision Blizzard, no, we didn't fuck up StarCraft. No, that was everybody else. We didn't fuck up Heroes of the Storm. That was everybody else. We're not running the Call of Duty franchise into the ground. No, that's somebody else. Somebody else. EA. Nah, they're not loot boxes. They're surprise mechanics. They're not predatory. It's not gambling. It just every time they, Riot in particular are no, it's fine to fart in your employees' faces at work. And we've had a word with them and said you probably should tone down the farting. That's fine. That's just another day in Riot Games. What do you mean?
There was a tweet the other day.
They can never be wrong, no matter how fucking obviously egregious it is, and they will stand by it to the end of time. And it's because
here's the other move as well, Richard. The only time they'll admit they did something wrong is if the person they've decided to scapegoat is now fired. They love that move of like, that was old people who were there. Like, that's the only time I noticed they'll, like, basically blame can only ever leave the company. It can never exist within it.
Oh yeah, I think you definitely, if you work for a big games company now or a tech company, the first thing you get is like just a handbook, and it's just called Joseph Stalin Managerial Techniques, and you just go through, and it's like, you know, Joseph Stalin said, "No man, no problem." Yes, yes, yes. Then you go down, and it's the death of a man is a tragedy. The death of 1,000,000 men is merely a statistic. Oh, wait, yeah, I see. Mass layoffs. It makes sense. This is perfect. And edit them out of the photos. Perfect. Yeah, love it. Like it is. You know, this is their managerial style. All the meanwhile putting out this idea that they're geniuses. You know, like. Yeah. Riot Games, you know how Joseph Stalin used to teach in schools? The answer to every scientific question was Joseph Stalin. So it was like, who invented the light bulb? You know, and the kid had nervously put the hand up. Well, was it Joseph Stalin? Yes, correct. You know, who discovered penicillin? Was it Joseph Stalin? Yes, it was. It was our glorious leader. You know, they do this in all these countries. Riot Games are like that. You know, Activision Blizzard is like that. They're all like that. You put your hand up. You know, who invented esports? Was it Riot Games in 2009 with the invention of League of Legends? Yes, that's right. Extra credit if you'd said Mark Merrill. It's fine. Who invented mechanics to stop online abuse and insults in a game because everyone's so fucking soft as shit now? The mute button isn't enough. Was it Jeffrey Light Lynn? Yes, correct. Riot Games. They did it again.
I've just realized the way. Here's all you need to know, guys. This is how Riot would actually successfully spin all the fucked up stuff that just happened to women in their company. You do it like this. You just come out with an announcement. Riot to lead the industry as first ever company to hire expansive and inclusive diversity department who will literally monitor all of their workers on a daily basis. All communications and calls to and from said worker will be monitored to check that they have, in fact, the prescribed understand. Like they would sell it as just a positive, whatever they brought in to fix their own problem.
They've done that. They did it yesterday.
No, that's what I'm implying. Like they you spin it into a positive that you ever had to bring that shit.
Yeah, no. They literally did though. They literally did because there was this Netflix thing that came out, and it was talking about how fucked up the games industry is. Okay. It's like, yeah, if only there was some sort of fourth estate in the games industry, like I don't know, some journalists or something that could be writing about the fucked up shit companies do instead of saying, "Oh, look, this gamer said a bad word." Let's write 500 think pieces about how the consumers are bad. Let's not actually hold these multi-million, billion-dollar corporations to account that are anti-consumer, that are systemically sexist, racist, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to go to fucking E3 and gaming conventions and get a Widow t-shirt and take a picture of me and put it on my Twitter and pretend I'm a fucking journalist for 5 minutes. These people are fucking slime. There is a fucking cancer at the heart of the games industry, right? And I'll tell you exactly what it is. It started out where the games industry was so fucking small and so fucking niche that no one paid any attention. And as more and more money came in, they all looked around and went, hey, wait, remember how Wall Street used to be like in the 80s where everyone could get away with anything because no one knew anything about it and the media didn't report it? And the banks was just a fucking global criminal conspiracy, and the stock market was in on it, and everyone was shorting everyone else, and it was just all bullshit. It was just all numbers flying around. But because people were dumb and journalists weren't paying attention, and the government were kind of in on it and taking backhanders, we got to fuck everybody up. We got to fuck everybody up and make a ton of money and do whatever depraved shit we wanted to do, because at the end of the day, we were deemed essential to society. Well, shit, we're like that now. No one really knows what's going on over here in the games industry. Why don't we bring back the good old days of frat bros, of fraternities running tech companies? And it happened, and it went on in not just games companies. Obviously, it went on in big tech across Silicon Valley, worldwide. And then the journalists, that were sort of writing about it were like, well, you know what? I don't really want to do what I want to do, because around about the same time, you have the whole blogosphere breakout, right? Anybody can self-publish. Anybody can even monetize self-publish. People can make a name for themselves with no formal training. So then what they start doing is thinking, well, I don't really want to be over here. This is nice and everything. I get a little bit of attention, a little bit. I'd much rather be over there with those guys having the wild parties and everything. So what I'll do is I'll run cover and fire for them for a period of fucking years in the hope that one day I get to hang out at the cool parties. And of course they do, the quid pro quo. And that was going on for years. That was going on for fucking years. Everyone knows it. Game reviews that are absolute bullshit and bear no fucking resemblance to anything. IGN gives every game a fucking 9. What do you think's going on over there? Do you think they objectively think every game is 9 out of 10? Do you believe that? No, it's fucking cahoots. It's cahoots, you fucking morons. So these companies have been able to get away with everything, and then just when you thought, hey, maybe the journalists are ready to do some fucking work, nah, we're not going to do that, actually. What we're going to do is we are going to say that every problem ever in the games industry is caused by the gamers, the people that buy the fucking games. Think about that for a second. It's not the companies that won't let their workers unionize. It's not the companies that are systemically sexist, won't promote women into positions. It's not the fucking, it's not the journalists that objectively lie and run covering fire for these pieces of shit company. It's not the predatory consumer practices. It's not introducing gambling mechanics for children. None of these things are bad, guys. None of these things are bad. It's you. It's you. And we've ignored it. And now the tumor is so big, it cannot possibly be excised. The tumor is bigger than the body that holds the tumor. That's what's happened because journalists didn't do their job. So you're absolutely on point, by the way, because Riot Games literally tried to sell their fucking sexism as a positive. They put a statement out the other day. It is mind-blowing, talking about how the diversity inclusive officer, and they deliberately did it after the Netflix thing came out. They literally did it the next day. Quick, drop the prepared statement, make a hero gay, we're fine. You know, one of those, like, just cynical bullshit that these companies do. And what you should just read it. It reads like just some the cultish element to Riot is still there. You know, what they've done now is to try and make up for the supposed problems within the company. What they've done now is they're now giving rioters different labels and names depending on what marginalized group they belong to, which to me kind of seems like, oh, I don't know, like it's likely to exacerbate the problem. But now, like, you, right, this is no joke. If you are a black or African American person working at Riot, you can sign up to a group called Riot Noir. That's no joke. That's real. The diversity and inclusion officer said that. If you're part of the LGBTQ community, you can join the Rainbow Rioters.
Let me a second. Let me just process this a second. Someone whose job is essentially including the word inclusivity is going to set up explicitly exclusive groups along racial and sexual boundaries in 2019 to solve problems of division between people along racial and sexual lines. Right, I think I've got it all. I think I've got it all there. I'm just going to go blow my own brains out and end the show. I can't. You know.
See ya. I don't blame you. It's all right. I'm right behind you, Duncan. Right behind you. Keep a bullet in the chamber for me afterwards. Right? No, listen, I'll read it to you. We created platforms to connect, leverage, and engage rioters, and we launched Rioter Identity Groups, RIGs. Right? These groups will not only foster a sense of belonging and community among rioters, they will also provide us with perspectives and insights on challenges and opportunities for diversity and inclusion. And it includes Riot Noir, the Rainbow Rioters. There's a group for veterans. There's just a group called Filipinos at Riot. Like, they couldn't even be asked to think of a name that was like fucking culturally relevant. They put this out. They thought this sounded good. And nobody said, hang on a minute, like, you know, I might be a fucking shitlord. You know what I mean? They have literally tried to make it sound like it's a positive. No one talks about these things. No one talks about these things. The games industry is absolutely fucked from the ground up.
Imagine one day if Riot is like sort of Amazon, where they're getting so big, you know, eventually they'll have their own cities that are just Amazon cities and they'll run everything with it for their employees, you know. I don't want to wake up one day and come along and sit and hear like fucking Jon Snow, like, and of course, day 4 of shelling from the Riot Filipinos in gaming, like, as the heavy resistance backlash from the Noir group is spreading through the south areas of the town. Riot official
into Rainbowville.
I know,
ridiculous.
exactly.
Like exactly. If you've ever read Ballard's High Rise, right? Like something like that. Anyway, that's a huge deviation from what we're talking about. I can't remember what the fuck we got on with, but
it was originally about the blast and the promises that they'd told. In the
yeah. I'm just saying is these companies, you have to understand, it's just towering hubris, corporate culture, which is an oxymoron.
Aside, I thought we could take it into that would be interesting is though the part that I would love to know, and if you're an investigative journalist out there, this is a story. If you can get anything close, remember, all you need is anonymous sources. As long as they're legit, you can do this story. All you need to find out is that at least one team was told by Riot that not Riot, Refresh, may as well fucking be Riot, Refresh, that they are in, except the difference is I'd like it if Riot was fucking based in Denmark. What a brilliant set of laws they have where all the shit's public. That's amazing. So I'll actually give props to Denmark, the country. What a great society they fucking have there. But the fact that they, remember, presumably, like think about it, Richard, if you've done a business deal with someone where you gave someone a contract and it contained within it details of financial remuneration in exchange for what they do for you, presumably it must have said something like attend X amount of events. Of those events, remember, even though they claimed as a lie, explicitly a lie, impossible logistically, that you chose the events you go to, couldn't happen, impossible. 7 teams could not pick the events. There aren't enough events, but let's imagine their world. Well, then I have to have had the choice of the events. So what happens, for example, if I was one of the teams that chose to skip one of those earlier blasts, and then all of a sudden, I was going to go to the last 2 blasts, mate. What? There's only 1 blast left. Now, what happens? Do I just get less money, which is very likely what the contract would say, by the way? So there we go. I've signed up to your league. I've sat there silently while everyone abused you and by proxy me, because as you saw, some fans would always take it that way on Reddit. There were the fans. I never told them to do this, but there was always the fans that were like, you know what? And fuck Blast. And in fact, fuck Astralis, because they must know this is all going on, and then they've signed up to it. And I always said, like, come on, man, like it's not quite that obvious. Like I doubt they knew very much of the details of it. I imagine they just had their people who obviously are head people in Refresh just tell them nice things, a bunch of platitudes of like, oh, it's great what we're trying to accomplish for esports, and we're going to push the field for, they didn't know really what the circuit was going to be like. As we've discussed here, unlikely Refresh did. They're making half of this shit up by the seat.
Yeah, they're definitely making it up as they go along, and it's very self-evident, right? I mean, because it's just the easiest thing in the world to just have a tour with stops and just dates, and you just put some fucking.
It would never benefit you, literally. If you know anything about the industry, it would never benefit you if you really had all the dates locked in and planned and the stadiums and everything to not have the tickets on sale as soon as possible, have the dates announced as soon as possible. Remember, if these teams are choosing events, they need to have known ages ago whether they turn down this event or not. I'm talking 3-4 months at least.
So look, we'll move on. Let's get into the QB Fire story. That's
this is a great one because no one else has picked this one up, Richard. The angle that no one's taken on this, which I'll get to in a minute, is remember everyone before telling us not to be worried about Furia? Yeah. The words they said are almost the fucking same. The words these 2 companies said are almost the same. Like, we are friends with our owner. Our owner would never fuck us. We don't even need contracts. Like, it's unbelievable the similarity in the words. And then yet again, it's a small org that has a team better than they should who are primed to fuck them. So, like, this story coming out was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, well, listen, look, I think just to give everybody the cliff notes in case you've not been following it, after we did the NIP story, when we did the interview with Fifth Lauren, Boomich came out and basically said he'd had $95,000 stolen during his time with QB Fire, which sounds really sensationalist on the top, but when you consider that he was given some of that money back when they moved teams. I believe was it Windstrike?
Yes.
There was a negotiation there where basically some of that money was going to get paid to the players from that organization.
Basically, instead of a transfer fee, just pay what we owe them or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was all kind of covered, but it wasn't for the full amount. And then what happened was the manager that wasn't named by Boomich, and I actually messaged Boomich. And he was like, listen, and trust me, when we're talking about people in Russia stealing your money, just don't. But obviously he was like, listen, I'm not even going to name the guy, not even in a DM. Obviously we all figured out who it was. But he said, like, as far as he's concerned, it's just one of those things he was willing to take on the chin, and probably shouldn't have tweeted about it. But, he wanted to explain that it's a problem that's facing other players. We had a nice conversation about his English. Is very good, actually. He seems a good kid. But, the bottom line is, this manager then goes on to HLTV, does the usual, it's all over-exaggerated, it's all lies, I wouldn't steal money. Actually, what happened was the players came back from the major with crazy ideas in their head of getting their market value. Crazy ideas. And we decided that, we had to withhold their salary because we were going to pay them the original agreed salary, which was a literal pittance, and we held back the modest salary that they asked for. That was pretty much the situation. And they was going, so it wasn't theft. We just didn't pay them money that they wanted. And so, which of course turned out to be a barefaced lie.
I love the way one of the go-to moves that business people have in esports is just semantic war. You just change the words.
Yeah,
my favorite one ever, I'll never ever be able to get over this one, was when that famous one in League, it was only technically vaguely connected to League, it was just the Orgs, when G2 founder Jens Hilger made that loan to Fnatic, where one of the conditions was that if Fnatic defaulted on the loan, he would then just own Fnatic. The famous wording that I believe Riot themselves used when they said that they'd stop this from happening was that there was no problem because they had reversed the loan. No such thing. That's a term that doesn't exist. That's a nonsense term. How could you reverse it? Either I gave you the money or I didn't. If you paid me the money back, that's just paying off the loan. That's not reversing any loan at all. That's nonsense.
Yeah, absolute.
Your Honor, I just reversed the loan.
Yeah, exactly.
I got your mind.
No takesy backsies. So anyway, DK did a report over on Deserto, basically breaking down where the money went, asking the right kind of questions, and it turns out...
It's weird, because if he's going to make up all his stories, I wouldn't make up
all
about shit little CIS orgs that are not even going to have that big of a pop.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's actually crazy. So, look, and then hot on the heels of this, there was the Epsilon story. If anyone thought Epsilon was fucking legit, I don't know what to tell you. Epsilon have been running on fucking fumes for I don't know how many
It almost
years.
goes without saying, when you see an org like Epsilon, my first assumption is they steal from Peter to pay Paul. Like, they obviously, you're never going to have the money. Yeah. You're never going to have the money to run an org at the level they're at. They're just surviving every time.
And not just robbing Peter to pay Paul. What they do is they are constantly scouting for talent, and they just hope they get lucky so they can just cream your fucking prize money. That's it. Get you to an event. You didn't read the small print in your contract. We take $50,000, of the $60,000 that you fucking owned, and now that covers all the expenses we've accrued over the 3 months, and we get to keep on living being a wretched, servile, terrible organization. For a few more months, we keep the lights on. It's like, well, what's the long-term plan here, guys? You've been around for fucking 12 years? Like, how do you live like that? Like, just call it a day. So, I think, I don't think anyone should be surprised. Listen, people are always talking about all the money that's coming in. The reality is, the fucking money that's coming in, it just goes to the top. There is no trickle-down economics in esports. If you're a mid-tier organization, you don't get the sponsors, you don't have a business plan, you don't sell merch, you don't have a product. So how do you make money? Yeah,
you need your team to get through the online qualifier. Yeah. You need your team to get the offer for an invite for a small DreamHack Open when the big team drops out a day before. You need all these. You need a million lucky things to happen. So as a result, it's like I made a video about this ages ago, Rich. I think it was maybe like a year and a half ago. I made this video where the whole premise. I think the title of the video was even "Bad Orgs Will Always Exist," and the explanation I give in it is just like bad agents in Hollywood and in the music industry, there will always be a guy at the bottom. He's even necessary, by the way, because the point is, since he himself plans to rip off and fuck over whatever talent he picks up, as a result, he is much more willing to gamble on less obvious talent. That's how some people get through the door. So what happens is you can't get an offer from a proper agency. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to go to the scammer. So he's the only one that'll give you the offer. What he's basically gambling is this. If you end up being a complete bust, well, fair enough. He didn't spend much on you anyway. If you make it, then he's going to, for your first album or your first few movies, he's going to absolutely ream you out. Now, after that, We all know the way this business works. Some friend of yours will tell you how it really works. You'll either break your contract, or you'll get out of your contract, or you'll let your contract run through, as, by the way, massive artists like Prince, etc., did at certain points in time. And then you'll just move to a new place and get a new deal. And it's just, unfortunately, it is a necessary evil of the business. Because in a business like ours, where if you actually know the macroeconomics at the top, even some of the top teams aren't making money. So, God, how do you think the 70th biggest org in the world is operating? Like, it had to be on the, like, not only within the margins, sometimes fucking sneakily pushing outside of them just to get away with it.
I mean, look, I'll tell you a real life story from outside of esports. Again, people who follow the stream regularly will know I've got a friend called Gareth Wood. GJ Wood is his publishing name. He's probably the best living writer, certainly in the UK by some distance. Phenomenally talented guy. And anyway, me and him have been plugging away for ages. I gave up writing fiction because it was just like, although Overwatch fans will tell you that's not true because they're fucking morons. But I gave up writing fiction, which is a much higher form of writing than journalism ever is, just because I couldn't really break through and get into that, right? So, but not him. He stuck at it. So we were both writers. We met at university. We've been friends ever since. And he got his first ever book publishing deal like a few years ago. And they basically said, like, we'll give you this deal. It was with a small publisher. We'll give you a 3-book deal across, I don't know, like 3 years. And of course, you jump at the chance, right? Because it's like, fuck, we've always wanted to be a published writer. So he gets into it, and then he realizes that if he ever wants to leave, they own the master rights to those books, so nobody else can ever reprint them. Nobody else can publish them. If they don't want to publish the book he turns in at the year, they're not obligated to.
Yep.
So
just delete it if they want.
Yeah. So what he realized was like, well, wait, he submitted a novel. I think it was called The Malignant Man. It's about a guy. He goes to a doctor, and he's just diagnosed as being cancer, and the treatment is to basically shrink him away to nothing, so he ceases to exist. And it's just talking about how just shit dystopian modern life is. It's a hell of an upbeat read. But they didn't want to publish it. They're like, this is a bit too downbeat for us. This wasn't really what we wanted to go with. But he's like, this is like my fucking best book. Like, this is the shit. Like, you got to fucking get this out there. So then he's like, well, look, can I shop it around? And they go, oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely. He's like, you don't want to publish it. So in his contract, he had to buy back the rights to his own work. And so he's out of pocket because, he's not a bestseller. So he had to buy back his own books, his own master copies from the publisher. They made a profit on that deal, and now he's got to go back to shopping it around, knowing that all the copies of all the books that he had published originally have been pulled off the shelves. So,
along these lines, people always say that classic line, which, by the way, shows no compassion whatsoever for the people involved. It goes like this: well, serves them right. Why'd you sign the deal? It's like, because they're desperate, you fucking idiot. They're literally willing to take anything because there is nothing better. I know everyone out there who says that goes, I'd have gone to a lawyer. It's like, I even made this point to people, even going to a lawyer when you're getting the shit contract with the organ that's going to fuck you. You're nobody. They're just going to go, I'm not going to sign the deal with you. There you go. What your lawyer says is all bunkum. Well, I'll sign the other kid who doesn't have a fucking lawyer, you moron. You're all nobodies right now.
Yeah. So, it's just crazy to me that, people think all the problems with the organizations like went away. Of course they didn't.
Come on, man. Like, if you had asked me to guess, mate, this is an org. Remember, before this team made the major, I'd never heard of a single one of these players. I don't think I'd ever seen one of them ever play Counter-Strike.
Oh, no.
And I've watched the top fucking 300 events ever held in CS, and they've never ever been at one of them ever in any way relevant. I don't think I've even seen them in the past before that major. I don't think they were even at Star Ladders, mate, who obviously in theory sometimes will give a lesser team from the region an invite. I don't think I'd even seen them at one of those events. So if you had to guess which org was going to be shady, this would be on the top of your list.
I mean, yeah, and this is the other thing as well. Like, what happens is, and you'll see this recurring, like, this is what's going on with Tfue, effectively. It's going on at the highest levels of esports. You're the young talent with a hope and a dream. You're the fucking Mighty Ducks, right? Or the Mighty Bliats in this fucking case. And you desperately want to get to events, And it's expensive to get to events, dudes. It's fucking expensive. An org will offset that, send you to a cheap hotel, pay your fucking flights. So you're like, okay, fuck it, I'll do it. Then you start winning. So now what? Well, you expect a reward, but the organization can't give you that, because if they could, that's what you would have got going in at the start. So now it's promises, and you've got to be like, okay, well, we'll get there. We'll give you a higher salary. 2 more events, please. And all the while in the back of their mind, they're like, how much longer can we tell the lie and spin the bullshit before we have to actually re-sign something that's binding? And then the money stops turning up. And you're like, well, hang on a fucking minute. We were meant to be getting a raise, not fucked in the ass. And of course, what that org is then doing is this is the phase you out part of the operation. You have now become an expensive luxury. You cannot be kept. You have to go. And now we can't pay you that money because it has to go somewhere else. Because we need another roll of the dice. We need some more naive, wide-eyed, fucking, oh, yes, please, this is so good. This is a great opportunity. It's an opportunity to get fucked. And that's what they do.
And this happens in every organization. Remember, this is the reason why, if you're a pro player, I'm not going to call the NIP players out specifically. By implication, I am. If you get fucked, one of the main reasons you must come forward is not for yourself. Like, if you want to be like, oh, but I might get fucked over. Yeah, that's a personal consideration. But this is why you must do it. Because we all know in esports, the rep you build with the scumfuck org is why the next kid joins twice as hard. Like, if you ask that next kid if he wants to join Quantum Bellator Fire, if I'm in the CIS region, well, yes, they even took an underdeveloped.
Yeah, they took an underdeveloped. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now your story is even built into the one that fucks the next guy. That's why you've got to make your statement to the public that this isn't how it worked.
Yeah, and look, I'll give you another famous example because we can say this now because it's different management and everything. But there was a period of time where when Mouse Sports had like some pretty good StarCraft 2 players on the books, they stopped paying them, and they stopped paying the CS team as well. And why did they do that? Because they had to divert the money into the Dota team, because the Dota team was in a good position to qualify for TI. Right. And they quickly cobbled together a contract where it's like, hey, if you get more than $1 million in prize money, we get 50% of it.
Reasonable.
Right? That's what I call the TI contract, if anyone doesn't know about that. If a small organization sends a team to TI, 50% of that money is going to the org. If they actually fluke it and win. There's a few of them going around. Might have changed. I haven't seen a Dota contract for about a year. But that's what Mouse Sports did. And I had the StarCraft 2 players, which of course back then, that's when I was working the beat in that scene. Sure. And they were all saying to me like, yeah, we're not going to go public though. They've been good to us up until this point. And it's like, yeah, but they've stopped paying you. They owe you 6 months of money.
The social angle is such a fucking trip on humans, because if you can get someone to like someone socially, they will literally violate almost every moral principle they have otherwise. It's insane. Like, you'll even hear people making comments that's like, it's a shame I have to turn in this guy who's done all this totally terrible, horrific stuff. You're like, why is it a shame? What, because you like him because you are? And by the way, the worst thing about this is these aren't even like, it's your brother or someone who's your lifelong friend. These are people who went on 3 trips with you, stayed in the same hotel with you and sat eating a burger and said, I hope Barcelona wins this game. That's like the extent of your deep personal friendship that you're then willing to overlook all this criminal shit for. Come on, man. That's the hill you're going to die on.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. And the reality is, if you ever wonder why all like sources are anonymous and stuff, there isn't a more petulant, spiteful, petty industry than esports. Probably, if a player goes public and says I'm owed money by this org, what happens first is the org goes on a press offensive, fucks their reputation by any means necessary. What's that? You've got some private DMs of them saying something unsavory? Let's put that out. Still doesn't alter the fact that you fucking owe them money, but let's talk about that instead. Don't have any leverage like that? Okay, we'll just call them barefaced liars to all of our fans. Okay, what's that now? They're going to sue us. We'll counter-sue them. We know we can't win, but it shifts the paradigm. It changes the conversation. They'll go to any lengths. And so players know that, and they know that going in. And then now imagine you're owed money by these guys, and there's a chance that it's coming in. They keep promising you, like in emails, oh, I'll get it to you next month. We got a cash flow problem right now, but next month. So you don't say anything that month, and then that month comes and goes. And then they go, oh, but we'll get it to you next month. We got a new sponsor. Also, and eventually, you hit 3 years. You hit 3 years.
The worst thing is sometimes
like
they might actually drip feed you a little bit of the money. That's the worst part, because then it'll keep the belief, won't it? Mm. Oh, except the other thing as well is, even in the moment they do, even sometimes they'll pay you the money they owe you. But I tell you what, when they pay you the money they owe you, look who else is in your org who might be owed money. Because he's now probably the guy who's, now it's his turn to go for 2 years of this shit, trying to get the money. So, like, these people, I won't say they're very clever. That would be massively overestimating them. I'll just say that compared to the absolutely naive, clueless kids they're working with, yeah, they seem like they're running circles around because the kids have no game plan. They don't even know what the game is.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, the QB Fire situation, the bottom line is, look, I'll just say this. Motherfucker took the money. That's how that story ends. You don't like it. Fucking, I already got the Russian mob going after me. So,
Because think about it. Remember, before that major, Quantum Bellator Fire, absolutely nobody. After that major, remember famously, they did nothing between two majors. Absolutely fuck all. Go look on the HLTV.org page. You'll be astonished how little they did between. So this guy literally hit the absolute jackpot in context of who he was as an owner. So why is he going to give that money to his players? Yeah. Like I said, he was gambling even after those fuckers. Why is he ever? In fact, I bet he had some amazing thing where, because he just played online tournaments, I bet he barely had any expenses anyway. So when he gambles and wins big, think about it logically, right? If you in fact were a criminal, it's hypothetical. Why would you give away the one big score you got to seem legit when you aren't legit and the plan was never to be legit? This only is a problem if people are naive enough to ever believe these orgs really ever thought they were going to be Cloud9. This Quantum Bellator Fire guy is very well aware he will never be Cloud9. So what he does is when he realizes he can't even get better than this, fuck it, I'll take the money now. Joke's on you. Why would I put it all back in and then leave bankrupt? Of course not.
And listen, there's a broader problem, right? I mean, there's nothing to compel them to be legit. Because as it says in the report, there's no body to enforce contracts in Russia for esports.
This is where, even though, again, I'm always fucking loath to in any way make a game developer have power over people, to some degree, you would like it if you qualify for a major to have some basic agreement with Valve that says you have to pay whatever your particular percentages are. I don't know, something to the players. Because at least the only thing I can think there is, like, with this org, it doesn't matter. They're never going to be in a major again. They never would be. But at least with one of those, semi-legit orgs that does have a future and wants to be in a major again, that might at least get them on side a little bit if they think they could be banned from a future major. Again, though, like I say, I'm always loath to put a Dame Dev in that position because if they're then the tyrant, right, I don't know how they fucking would handle it.
But like say when he said in the report, that DK put out, there's just nothing enforcing contracts here. No, there isn't. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? There's just nothing you can't do anything. The players have no recourse.
I'll try and find this quote. Oh, here it is. It's because what happened is when this story came out by DK yesterday, Scrawny, who's the commentator who actually, funnily enough, is actually at some of the Blast events, unrelated aspect of this.
Yeah, cool dude.
Said, he's a good guy. He's from Canada. He said he went and found back when the Bellator Fire team, when they made top 8 at the Boston Major, he went back to an interview and he found this quote. It said, "We're friends with our organization. It's not just business. Our CEO is our friend. That's why we don't have contracts. He trusts us. We trust him." And as I said in my reply to him, that is the classic MO of a manipulator. Of course, they get you on an emotional level. They make you believe they'd never fuck you. Therefore, you don't. What's crazy about these guys, I've seen it happen in esports. They will literally make a young guy feel as though he's being unreasonable and a disloyal friend for asking for an actual contract that states he will get what he has already promised, even though think it through logically. If you indeed plan to pay him all of that, why would it be a problem to put it in writing? As people who are legit always say, there's legit people I've worked with who have even said, "I know you, mate. We don't necessarily have to put this in writing." And they'll go, "Nah, but just for both parties' safety of mind." And you think, yeah, fair play. Actually, that shows you are legit. That even though you, in this scenario, probably don't benefit from doing it, you're just going to do it so we can not. There's no point us anywhere down the line worrying about. We've all got it in writing, haven't we? So like this angle, and as I brought up before, this also becomes highly relevant in light of what just happened with the whole Furia thing, where it was almost the same fucking words coming out that team's mouth about how they trust their organization, etc. As I've said to people before, orgs are not people. If you want to trust your CEO, that's one thing. He's a person. Maybe you have a relationship with him. There is no such thing as loyalty to an org. There's no such thing as loyalty to a team. These are made up concepts that only exist on paper. And on paper, there are no rules whatsoever saying they can't fuck you unless you have literally put that down on paper in exactly the terms that you want. People have got to stop this nonsense of thinking you can be loyal to a team. That owner will, remember, the owner himself usually doesn't even have financial culpability within the org. The org itself can go bankrupt and owe you all the money. This has happened in esports many times. And that owner could come back 3 years from now and start a new org and never ever have to pay anyone. And by the way, I made this point many times.
Which is what they do.
Even though in esports, the old school always say to those people, pay back the debts that you owe. They have no legal obligation. Absolutely none. So even though I agree it would be nice if they did, that isn't business, mate. That's just that's a utopian world view that doesn't match up with business reality, I'm afraid. And in fact, without going too fucking woke here, that isn't a bug of the feature. That is literally a feature of a bug of the system. That is a feature of the system that people can start companies like this and go bust, because that's what all these people investing want to do. They want to start a million companies, and the ones that fail, you and everyone else in the company take the fucking hit. They just roll off with the big salary and the money they made and start all over again, of course. It actually encourages that behavior.
Yeah, it's you know, it's the same old story. It's the same old story. I don't know if there's a solution to it long term.
Probably not, unfortunately.
Except for people to get wise to it. But it's like we said, you know, if you want the opportunity, you got to take the hit. Right, other news. God B. We'll get into the whole big stuff. But we'll start with this because I think it's worthy of just mentioning it in isolation. Obviously, God B has officially retired. I think, you know, I think the time is right for him to do that. You know, I think for a while that, you know, there's been evident that, you know, he's had trouble keeping up in terms of fragging, but fantastic in-game leader, undoubtedly one of the best ever across all versions of Counter-Strike. But it looks like he's going to be moving to a coaching role within the big organization. Obviously, I've known God B like many years, as I'm sure you have as well. Even spent some time living with him in America when he was working on the NRG project. Just a super cool dude. I like I say, I think he's one of the best in-game leaders that Counter-Strike has spawned. Has always consistently had great tactical teams. People forget the era in 1.6 where you know, he won IEM championships with that German team. I mean, that came so far out of left field. It's like one of the great stories in 1.6, that 2015 Mouse Sports lineup, which of course obviously has the 6 tragedy.
2010.
Sorry, 2010. My bad. Sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking about when he moved to CS:GO. My bad. The 2010 lineup, which obviously had the 6 tragedy around it, which was you know, when you know, that was like just probably the first big esports bereavement that any of us had gone through.
And by the way, for people who don't know, that's actually an interesting detail probably should be filled in, which is when that incident happened, right? The only reason that this is what's so bizarre about the way life can go sometimes. The actual plan that year was that, like, they'd never had this player called Roman, who individually was considered the best player in Germany. I know now you're supposed to say it's 6 just because people do that stupid thing where they confuse nostalgia with like their actual sentiment for a player. It was a debate between the two, but I personally considered this guy called Roman was like the hard carry of the region. But famously, he always played in the 2nd or 3rd best German team. And I assume personally, he must have had some sort of a like competitive beef with some of the Mouse players, because when they made the Mouse super team for 2010, where they brought the Roman guy in, behind the scenes, it was even implied like, right, some of them were thinking of retiring anyway. So they thought, fuck it, let's do one last year. Let's make the super team everyone said we always should have made. And then let's see if we can win a bunch of championships on the way out the door. Then tragically, basically not almost halfway through this project, because it was around early August or something, 6 unfortunately died in that car accident. And as a result, a project that already might have had a short lifespan in terms of the team, they basically, all the players in the team were mad depressed. I think people like God B, who knew him very closely, were even heavily considering retiring. They didn't end up retiring. What they ended up doing is themselves going down a level in Germany. Like they went to the ESC org, which just meant they played in EPS still, to keep their foot in the game. And every now and then, I think they could maybe play like a small international tournament. But the implication was, we all thought in 1.6, we're never going to see God B again. Like him, Capio, all the people who were friends with Six were going to move their way out the door. So actually, CSGO getting big, because they obviously weren't like the prime movers of the game at the beginning, actually brought new life to God B's career and brought him back out of the shadows and to prominence again. And he got to see it, because otherwise, like, if that story ends in fucking like beginning of 2011, there wouldn't even be this announcement now. There would be nothing else since then. So to me, everything that happened from 2011 onwards is a bonus. And I could even make a case, there's a really interesting what if story for what if that tragic scenario hadn't happened. Because what people forget is the most tragic detail of Six's death is that if he hadn't have missed his flight, he would have never died. I believe it was traveling home in the car where he died, or the next morning going there or something. So it's one of those
what happened was he missed his flight, and he was getting a flight early in the morning, and they were like behind schedule, and they were trying to make up for time.
So it's one of those ones that like there really is another universe where none of this happened.
Yeah, totally. But look, that mouse sports team was like the high point of German Counter-Strike.
Sure.
That's never been topped. You think about where German CS is now compared to it. But his legacy, exists in just other areas. Like you say, first of all, some of the players that he developed in 1.6, just phenomenal talent that without God B being there, never really replicated it at other teams. Obviously as well, and Carrigan will tell you this, Carrigan now, who we're always praising on the show for obvious reasons. Well, he said he learned in-game leadership from God B when they played in that 2015 mouse sports, or 2014 might even have been lineup when they came together in CSGO. And basically Carrigan wasn't an in-game leader. And he studied and was working with God B. And when he wanted to move on and create his own teams, he basically took his cues from God B, the way that he does the system, the way he implements things. He's a little bit less authoritarian, but
sure.
In general, the systems that God B put in place were sort of what he wanted to emulate. And God B is a guy, super hard worker. I mean, I think people have this idea that just because he couldn't frag out, like he wasn't like deathmatching or whatever. Like when I lived with him, this guy would deathmatch for like way more than anyone else on the team, way more. And then he would, on top of that, spend his evenings with a hookah next to him. That's a hookah, Duncan, not a hooker, a hookah. And just fucking, he'd be looking at every smoke, like he'd just be stood there, like throwing it. Where does it land? Clipping across, a little bit to the right, throwing it. Where does it land? He would always have like a box of tricks, like smokes, Molotovs that other teams weren't using. And he had even this late in his career had like a real yen for discovery, a real thirst for it. So it's a big loss overall. But the one thing I will say is, out of all of the kind of in-game leaders that have talked about transitioning towards being a coach, or those who've actually done it, I think God B is the guy who's going to be like the most successful at it.
This way, I'll give you a very brief anecdote. I won't give the details of it because actually, like I was told, it's in confidence. So I don't want to explain the scenario. But basically, from God B and others within the big team, they told a story to me and Lurpis when we were at CS Summit about something they did within their team as a specific type of communication for when something would happen in the game that I have never heard anyone even describe this concept. But if you knew the concept, it is absolute genius. Like it solves literally what is a basic communication problem in a very simple way, but literally no one has ever thought of this. And by the way, if people haven't understood the context of why I mentioned the story like that, Lurpis was a top 1.6 in-game leader. Like if this was something commonplace, he would have known it. He would have employed. Even he, when he heard this, was like, how didn't the rest of us ever think of that though? That's fucking amazing. Like this, like that's the level that some of these people were thinking on. Like the whole point is, the thing I actually love about the old school is it's hard now to know unless you get to know them on a very deep personal level. Who are the legit people? Who are the people who love CSGO for CSGO? Not because if you're a top CSGO player, you get lots of money and fame and all the rest of it. Like the good thing about the old school days was you wouldn't be around. You wouldn't be killing yourself to get 20K in a year. Like that's never the motivating factor. So luckily the people back then who did spend fucking 10,000 hours in a server just running strats and looking at fucking shitty demos of their opponent, they were people who really were the pioneers and actually had some sort of deep love or passion for the game. And they didn't have to prove any of it because their life shows it. They don't have to tell you about any of that shit.
Yeah. So, I mean, like a super cool guy. Obviously don't do events anymore, so don't see him as much. But definitely someone that's made like just a stellar contribution to the game. Definitely deserves to be remembered as one of the best, like, future Hall of Famer type. No doubt about it. And like I say, obviously not over. You're still going to see him around. It's just going to be in a coaching capacity, which I think he'll have a natural aptitude for. So very, very interested to see where that goes. So we can move on and talk about Big. There's lots to sort of break down with the Big move, because what they did was Gobby obviously goes out, retires. Next comes back off the bench for the millionth time, but crucially they bring Smooya back. And Tabson's going to be the in-game leader moving forward, but that will most likely be augmented from support by Gobby being a supporting role as a coach. Right. So Dennis moves to the bench. Let's start with Dennis, right? Because we bang on him all the time on the show. I don't think he's a tier 1 player, but I will say this. The way Big have sort of treated him here, when this move was clearly always on the cards and it had been alluded to for a long time that Smooya was coming back and Gobby was going to move to coach, they disrupt Sprout by taking Dennis, because Dennis isn't going to say no to a move to Big.
Of course not.
Right? Because obviously if he starts playing really well, which was never going to happen, but if it did, you've got to take the chance, right? Like
the hope alone is what keeps you going if you're at his level.
Yeah, exactly. So he fucking does that. And they immediately, it was just a fill-in job, basically. Like he was just a stand-in. He was just a warm-up act, and they put him in and then drop him, and now he's benched again. And it's like, he probably can't go back to Sprout. He might have burned his bridges on the way out there.
Here's the sad thing: when he was in Sprout, I wasn't a big fan, but he was one of the players people said, look, he sort of turned his career around. They're not a bad team, they come close. Like, if anything, your narrative, the rep around you was starting to get redeemed. What they did in this team was what I hate, which is you basically absolutely fucked a guy, because what you did is you gave him a job he couldn't possibly do. Then when he failed, you just left him for the world to see. And even you officially reject him for that failure. It's like, well, that's like fucking cruel and unusual punishment.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I gotta say, like, I really feel for him. I don't know what happens now. Maybe he can go back to Sprout. Maybe that was the deal all along. Who really knows? But it's like you say. It's like, hey, we're bringing in this player to do a job that, like, he needs to completely reinvent his play style. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about here? It's Dennis. It's fucking Dennis, for fuck's sake. Like the idea he's going to suddenly be able to pull this shit out and be like, it's ridiculous, it's absurd. And, I
think another angle you can throw in as well, right? I actually think, this will sound weird, but I'll actually give a little peace branch to the Big org in this regard. I do think the expectations of Big, now they've set them themselves, but they are, in terms of pragmatic terms, very unreasonable. Because there is only there are 3 reasons anyone in the world who isn't from Germany gives a fuck about Big. And they go like this. Gobby, number 1. They have a legendary in-game leader who has lowered himself to play for their team. Make no mistake, at any point in time in the last 3 years, including when he was with NRG, he had better offers, could have been on way better teams. If he wanted to be a coach, could have been on the top teams in the whole world. This guy could have been on a FaZe clan, maybe even as a player. Who the fuck knows, depending on where things could have gone over the last few years. He lowered himself to work for this team, and that made them relevant. Then they got a similar deal from Tabson, one of the best players in the world. Like, even at his best, I might not have had him as like a top 5 player, but he might have been a top 10 player at one point in time. I would say conservatively, at least top 20, top 30. Had a lot of carry potential. Again, lowering himself to play for your team because he wants to play with God B. You've got 2 massive fucking steals here. Then the third reason is Smooya, obviously, because he's a talented person, but obviously is in equal part counterbalanced by his fucked up young personality that hasn't yet fully developed, and he's made his mistakes. So you've gotten these 3 mega steals that made your team relevant, and out the back of that, you got to the final of a big tournament. Cool. The problem is, if you look at the people they've brought into the team before that, since then, and who's ever been linked by rumor, when have you ever heard of a big team player being linked with this team? Never happened. When have you ever seen a big team player join this team? Never happened. When have you ever seen them sell a player to a big team? Never happened. They literally only had the things I was talking about. Beyond that, the players they're even looking at are the German players. They Turkish don't even
players,
get.
Obviously, with Zantaras.
They're not even in position, it would appear, to get the imperial type players of the world, like the high name FPL type fraggers that everyone wants. Those are the, like, look at what Carragher just did in Mouse. They're the players you restock your team with. They're not even on the market to get an Oscar when he's coming back from it. Like, the actual position this org's in. Now, true, a lot of it, I understand. You don't want to admit that things are bad and that transparent because it's esports. We're all lying. We're all selling the lie that we're bigger than we are. And if all my rivals are selling the bigger than I are lie, I want to parlay the fact I was in the big international final at Cologne into making out like I'm a big org. But I do think, like, it's unrealistic to expect they were going to sign anyone good. Like, they were never going to sign big players. So for me, it was always about making those 3 players stay in the team, work together, and maybe you could do something from that. So I'll say that, like, I don't judge the org too harshly in that regard. I think they were somewhat painted into a corner financially.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You know, I think you know, the way they try and sell it is that they want to focus on like German talent.
It's a clever angle to take.
Yeah, it's like, what's the stand for again? Berlin
International Gaming, I think.
Which isn't that like an oxymoron, or am I being dumb?
It's funny, put it that way.
Yeah, it's Berlin, but it's international, but we're focusing on German talent. Okay, cool. Cool. Anyway. You know, so look, they've already, I guess they're international because the Rat King's there. But look, at the end of the day, like the whole thing about Smooya coming back, you know, it just underlines just how fucking dumb he was, you know, how dumb the team was, but mostly him, you know, because it was like, since they've come back, you know, I caught a couple of games the other night. I think they were playing a Vanguard, and you know, at the end of the day, like, you can see he should never have gone away. Like, he's still one of the most talented players on that roster. He's still a player that's capable of winning games by himself.
I'll speculate here. This is pure speculation. I'm not based on any private conversations.
Okay.
I think that what they were trying to do, because the thing, like, as I've mentioned before, Big wasn't on anyone's radar before Cologne, but they were a team that existed. They went to tournaments. And even then, when Smooya was on their team initially, there were already these rumors behind the scenes. He might have a rocky time and he might be out the team. So as far as I can tell, the entire time Smooya's been in Big, there've been these issues, and they have seen him as someone who doesn't quite fit the mold, as we saw with that whole thing with that locker guy. They have a very intense fucking relationship inside that team. Like, the whole principle is like a military unit. You obey their commands and the people who are above you, or else. So Smooya as a person just isn't that kind of guy. You know, he's got his own perspective. He wants to do his own things. To me, I actually think, because I'm not going to degrade my belief in the knowledge of Godby and Tabson's understand the game to think they really thought Smooya was a better support player and that he should not use the AWP. That doesn't make any sense to me. So to me, I saw this as some kind of a fucked up, like, hoop that they were going to make him jump through to humble him a bit when he had to play a role that doesn't suit him. And then eventually they would have given him the AWP back as kind of like a gift to show that he's earned his way back, you know, some kind of like prodigal son type cycle, you know. The problem is with Smooya, that was never going to work. He's someone where, at least to that point in his career, if you fuck with him, he's going to act out even more, isn't he? He's going to do the ridiculous thing, as he did, where he did the one thing they couldn't afford to happen. He pulled the fucking auto-destruct, the self-destruct lever right before the major, and thought, right, well, you know what, if I'm going down, everyone goes down with me. It's like that. That's the last thing you want, because again, as I said, they couldn't get anyone better than Smooya. So they need both the parties need each other. They just didn't understand it fully, it seems.
Yeah, it was a real fucking strange one for me, because I still to this day I'll never understand why he did it, because, you know, you think about the timing, like, I just want to go to a major, kill it at the major, get a fucking, you know, get my sticker money, right? You know, can you imagine a Smooya fucking sticker with a little rat with a little crown on it? You know, like, you're gonna sell money. I don't have a
If I were you, Smoothie, no joke, if you ever get a sticker, put that on it. You would actually make money. I would embrace this whole persona. Now I get it.
Oh,
The Rat King.
He's had a stick. He has had a. Oh no, you're right. He hasn't. Has he? Yeah. No, has he not played at a major?
Oh, he's played at majors, but did he?
Yeah, I think he had a sticker. Yeah, I think he's got one out.
He should put the Rat King on it.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely should.
Make it your whole meme.
Just as an aside as well, I saw the dream. Yeah, there you go. He's got 2 stickers. I thought so. But yeah, you should definitely embrace the Rat King thing. But just as an aside as well, just to put someone else in the Dick Stacy sort of hall of shame, right? Of trying to sneak stupid things in signatures. Did you see the Dream Eaters, Sivat?
Come on,
what he did.
This.
Well, so what he did is
crazy to me that someone from Eastern Europe who isn't intensely connected into a North American social.
So what he did is
how we do things.
Yeah. So what Suvat did is in the middle of his signature.
This is even worse. The esports is getting tortured over fucking identity politics. You're putting the word bitch in your fucking sticker. Are you mentally ill?
Yeah, it's mental, isn't it? Right?
What the fuck is this?
Yeah, right. And like, of course, all. So I just wanted to show I'm consistent in my opinion because everyone's like, "Oh, you just hate Dick Stacy." Like, he doesn't even have a fucking personality. He's just a walking soundboard that occasionally says, "Hey, penis." Like, he's a fucking, he's a smear. I don't even know who the fuck he is, but I just know all the stuff he does is stupid. Anyway, this is like you say, it's completely ridiculous. Like, you submit your stickers to Valve. You submit your stickers to Valve, and you put like the equivalent of like slut or bitch or something like on your signature, and then you send that into Valve, right? And all the incels are like going, "Oh, I totally buy that. I totally buy that." It's like, yeah, but it's never going in the fucking game, is it? 'Cause it's grossly offensive to a large portion of the fucking Counter-Strike audience, so Valve aren't going to sign off on it. There needs to be a new rule, Valve. I know you watch the podcast. If players submit a dumb fucking signature like this, right? Just tell them they can't have one in the game.
Or they get one and it has to just be their name written in default Comic Sans MS font.
Oh, yeah. Or you Comic Sans them.
And it's going to be
Comic Sans them. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's basically like the fucking whatever it is. Like what was that thing? The Scarlet Letter. That's the equivalent of the Scarlet Letter in the modern generation. Right?
Because it's getting ridiculous now. It's like, because what's started to happen is all these shit players, all these shit semi-pro players, they think if I can sneak something vaguely controversial into the sticker, again, fuck the big picture, but morons will buy it. Morons will buy it. Like, if I had a sticker in the game, Duncan, it would just be Goatsy, just rend it. I don't even know where I'd fit in the O, but I'd just have a Goatsy in the middle of it. And then, look, Goatsy, it's an old meme about a guy ripping his arsehole apart for no reason. I'm buying that. And I'd be sat on my fucking pile of Goatsy money.
What you could do is you could.
What's wrong with everyone? For fuck's sake,
the E could be a stylized fist with the knuckles, and then the I in Lewis could be like another one, but like a short one.
An erection.
Like, and then the W is just the absolutely reamed out arsehole, just getting stretched.
But enough about Moses.
Exactly.
By
the way, to say, for anyone who doesn't understand the distinction, obviously, I, as a personal entity, don't have a problem with a joke that says the word bitch or says dick. But the point is it appropriate to be inside the game that the fucking game developer is producing a special one-off exclusive item that, in theory, is supposed to last forever?
No, this is the entire point, right? It's like, first of all, because it's in the game forever. What you have to understand is, you know how games journalism works, right? They're going to discover that in 2-3 years and be outraged by it. So we're going to be free and clear and like thinking, yep, CS is fine. We're allowed to be adults and mature and make adult jokes. No, Polygon's going to discover it in 3 years, write a fucking hit piece about it. And then Valve are going to have to react, right? Because they're going to get worried about a boycott or something. And then all the stickers get took out the game, and then we just lose history and a revenue stream because of outrage culture. So it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that players are trying to do this. And there should be some form of punitive measures now because these shit players that are going to play at like one major, right, are going to keep trying to sneak it in. Now, meanwhile, a little rat with a crown on, that's fine.
Ideal.
Yeah, that's ideal. So I'm just telling you, Smooth, yeah? But anyway, here's the question, Duncan. Do you think he's learned anything, or do you think he's going to be the same old chavvy cunt?
Smoothie, you mean?
Who else are we talking?
I thought you were talking about the guy who just did the sticker.
No. We can move on from that now. No, I'm talking about Sam. Do you think he's still going to be doing pills while we're trying to do a show?
That he's not really. He's more like the Doc. He's more like a Doc-built platypus because he's a strange creature that shouldn't exist and is all about that beak.
that is Sam for sure.
The most well-known feature of him is his beak. So.
All right, true.
I know, but here's the thing to say. You know what, Richard? I'm about to make a huge mistake here. Something Smoothie's never said at any point.
Cue up the timestamp.
His own brain.
I'll pull the plug.
I'm willing to give a solid 60% chance that Smoothie might have started to mature and become a reasonable human being.
Oh, you've done it now.
Not even then. I'm not giving 100%. You notice. First of all, I do actually think he got humbled by this period where he didn't get the big offers from NA. Like I know he said, I've had offers from NA teams. Like, yeah. Did you say big there? Did you say, did you have offers from a team? You know, like, let me know who those teams were, homie.
United were really interested, guys.
I mean, I'll just say this.
Swole Patrol wouldn't stop ringing me.
You have shown yourself as someone who, if they were big teams who'd offered you and you'd said no, you'd just go ahead and say the name. So I don't know if you know. I'm going to be doing this a lot throughout your career if you stay in esports, like figuring out all your bullshit and just putting it out there in front of everyone so everyone could see the little basic parlor trick you're trying to do a 3-card Monty, and I'm just going, he just took the thing out under his hand then. You're going, can you stop saying that though? Because it ruined my business. And go, yeah, but I'll fucking ruin your whole business. Now get inside that box you live in. Right. Here's the move though, right? Is I actually do think that it humbled him a little bit. I already think, believe it or not, from what I observed of him in Big, I already saw internally it looked like they were actually having a positive effect on him. They were sort of like making him be more of a teammate and be a bit less of an arsehole. So I think this is the right move for both parties. I'll even throw in, by the way, to be fair, in his downtime, from the pictures I've seen him post, it looks like he's actually vaguely gotten in shape. He's dropped like that little gamer belly he had before. So fair play. If he's somebody who's actually putting in some effort, I'll give him another chance. I'll even say as well, I don't know about this particular case, how much he said publicly, but I know unlike the KNGs of the world, to some degree, he has. Like, I've already told the story on this show that he came up and apologized and basically said, like, let's just fucking start over or whatever. So that's there's at least enough initial signs there.
He tried to do that with me, but door was closed, Duncan. I told you, I extend my hand
once.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
I extend it once. And if you slap it away, you are forever the rat.
So listen, Smoothie, will you just learn about maturity and No, here's the thing, Richard. I've always said
I don't give a fuck.
You've got to have your guilty pleasures in life.
Look, he'll outlive me. He's just got to realize that, like, you know, was it Bruce Lee who said that, to beat your opponent, you just outlive them or something? I don't know.
In that case, Bruce Lee did lose to a lot of his opponents.
Oh, massively. What a pussy.
That one came back to bite him.
What a massive pussy. I beat Bruce Lee.
I didn't Bruce Lee. Think about your daft cunt. I just said, if you beat your opponents in Jeet Kune Do match, you are the winner. Don't go staying alive, because you've then gone and had an absolute Hartsburg / being killed by the CIA. Someone from a country I don't want to mention, that if they did do it, again, I'm not saying they did, and if they did, I didn't do it, so you make up the rest of your mind.
I just love how
go to prison. I know
it's so ridiculous that we're at a point where you'll happily criticize the CIA, but not the other countries you can't talk about.
I'm not going to fucking Langley tomorrow, am I? Like,
I don't know about that, mate. Keep talking.
I might have to.
So, Duncan, what is the temperature of jet fuel? Do you know?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Who really knows? Anyway, fucking timestamp all of that. Who gives a fuck? So yeah. Anyway, no, I agree. Look, at the end of the day, people forget he's still a young lad, right? Is he even 20 yet?
I don't know. I'm just deleting all the inappropriate jokes I was going to say as a result of that.
I think, is he like 20? That's young as fuck these days.
Right, here's the question.
You know what I mean?
If I say this joke, we're going to have to timestamp it. I don't think it's actually that bad.
Why do it then?
No, because it's one.
Why risk it? Like,
I'll type it to you. You tell me if this is,
just type it out first, Duncan. Remember the deal.
Too bad.
Okay, remember the deal. Let's have a look. The thing is, as well, whenever you do this, it's mild as fuck always. It's the stuff you actually say that's worse. I don't... I don't really know where you're going with it.
It's borderline enough. It's a good joke, but the problem is that it could be misinterpreted.
We'll just leave that.
All right, we'll leave that one. It was good. That's all you need to know. It was good.
Listen, I'll credit you for thinking of it.
All right, fair enough.
There you go. Well done.
Put it this way, if this was unfiltered 10 years ago, I'd have already said this joke about 10 years
I know.
ago.
Yeah, exactly. And no one would give a fuck either.
Sadly, people would have just thought, it's probably just a stupid joke.
Matter of time before those VODs get trolled, by the way. I can't wait for that to happen.
The real joke is it'll be us mass flagging Chan Man's VODs again. People who actually get on the show, exactly.
Yep. Take it down, Chan Man. Right, okay. So, wait, I think was there like one other story after the big thing I want to talk about? But who gives a fuck? We're down in like 15 minutes and we got to do the questions.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there was something I had.
There was a question.
Oh, yeah, the big one. What the fuck? Nearly forgot. So, it was just posted on Deserto again by DK, Counter-Strike's top reporter. DK's sources. StarLadder reconsidering talent lineup for Berlin CSGO Major. And what this means is they are talking to 3 people, apparently. They're talking to some dude called Moses, a dude called Anders, and a dude called Thorin about potentially getting them to the Major.
I believe it just technically says he's talking to some of them, though. Does it actually say those 3 people are all being talked to?
I think
he just purposely keeps it vague.
Oh yeah, a classic DK, right? Like just vague.
Not that it is those 3. Like.
Yeah, it says the 3 talent members originally expected to miss the major tournament were Anders, Moses, Thorin, and it is unclear at this time if any of the 3 of them will come with the StarLadder. But discussions are ongoing, Duncan.
I love discussions.
Yeah, same. Come on, it ain't China. Surely you can talk about this, you man.
I will just say this.
Yeah.
For some of those individuals reported on by DK, it sounds like there are positive signs on the horizon. And I think that actually some of those individuals, who may or may not be me, but again, may not be me, something might happen. You know what? If I wasn't me and I didn't know me or any of the circumstances around me, I'd bet that there's a good chance I might be there.
So,
I mean, listen, I just want to say,
like, anything about it, did I? Fucking hell!
I think
at least one of those people will definitely be there. There you go. There's a little leak for you. Well, at least one of them.
Listen, I think.
I think it would be great if all 3 were. That would be cool.
I think if all 3 make it, then obviously that's like a real good thing. Fucks up the no majors.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's this? All right, and they started looking at the roster for the no majors club. Like, hang on, mate, hang on. How many viewers are we gonna get on the main?
Yeah, because the no majors club could have been like Moses, Anders, Thorin,
Vince. We could have had a desk.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll credit you. It would have been brilliant. But I will be doing that Woody Harrelson crying with $100 bills when I shed a tear for you guys. I can't be on the show.
I've said it, Duncan. Like at the end of the day, like I know how you're fucking wired, mate. It's fine. Like it's fine. Like it's like you'd be like,
listen, Rich, I'll buy you 2 extra whiskeys next time,
mate. The amount of the round disparity in this friendship is out of control.
I'm gradually making it off.
Yeah, eventually. But anyway, like, look, at the end of the day, the No Majors Club is something that we do as an alternative for the community. At the end of the day, the major's the main event, and it should have the
I'd even say as well,
best
even
people there.
Even though it's a cool thing to do on the side, I don't think people realize, like I'm joking here, we're not making big money off it or anything. We do it because
we're not making any money.
All the people involved with that show actually have passion for the Counter-Strike. They'll watch the major anyway, even if they're not working it. So if they do, they think, fuck it, may as well do this show as well for fun.
Yeah, so it's interesting because
also, let's be real, there'll be majors in Poland again, guys. I'll be back on the fucking show.
Oh, sure.
Next thing you know, they'll have one in fucking Brazil. I'll be right back on the show for a nice little streak of majors.
Yeah. But I mean, I can understand it. Like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that classic thing where it's like, I'm going to take the credit for this because, obviously there was a lot in play where, first of all, we would have had a stacked talent lineup. Second of all, obviously, Scoots and Alchemist have got that studio going on. So, there was a potential that we could have, like, had us in a studio doing it. And I think Starlad looked at that and thought, if the fucking No Majors Club is actually better than the fucking Major, that's bad. That we could even go below Face It if we did that. So You're welcome, guys. Once again, Richard Lewis, the selfless prince of esports.
Humble as well. So humble.
Yeah, the selfless prince of esports has basically manufactured a situation to get my boys cheddar. You know, while obviously simultaneously turning down the event himself because he's just like that. Not a paranoid shut-in or anything. It just makes sense. So listen, I hope it happens, dude. I'll be psyched about that.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Right then. Do these questions, get you out on time. Right, so our patrons that support the show. Jerky's Minion, our top patron, I believe, at the moment. With Quake Champions adjusting its format, this is a Duncan question immediately, I can see. With Quake Champions adjusting its format in competitive play, do you think it might rise up again as an esport, not just at QuakeCon?
Please don't use that term.
Rise.
Yeah, we've got to stop. We've got to stop saying rise up, mate. Incels are rising up, and the Vincels, of course, too. So yeah, this is a question for you. I don't even know what the format change is.
Basically, one of the worst things about Quake Champions is that they pissed off all the actual Quake fans by making the game so that instead of it being like a 10-minute duel where you win by having the most points at the end, it would be like you would have 3 champions. So you had like 3 lives, and then you have 3 lives, and I have 3 lives. And when my first champion kills yours, you have to go to one of your other champions in the game, and you now have 2 lives. And then whoever gets the other one to no lives wins that game. So as a result, in theory, it could be possible that whole thing could end in like 3 frags, basically. So like it made it terrible. Whereas what they did is they just changed it so that now it's a 10-minute duel again, like old school Quake. So even though the game itself is different from old Quake, at least it has a format that you remember and is familiar and allows comebacks and allows you to run up the score and, you know, all the factors that you'd want in a Quake game, basically. So the problem is that is the main thing I liked about the change. It made me able to watch QuakeCon and actually enjoy some of the matches and go, this is something I recognize. The problem is it won't rise up as an esport because there's a million factors behind how the developer interacts with the community. And the fact that I'd have to just go ahead and say it as an incredibly small community, it's not a game that's going to succeed. Like, if you notice, by the way, here's all you need to look at when it comes to id Software games, right? When they bring out a new Doom game, everyone on your Twitter timeline will talk about how they love Doom because they are casual plebs. And Doom, at the end of the day, is just a nostalgia-based casual fragger. You just play it and you just shoot people in the game. It's mindless shooting. There's not a lot of real tactics and puzzles. That's what Doom is at its best at. Well, the problem is, yeah, that will always appeal to fans. Spoiler, that's how esports began, because games like Doom just appeal to every casual player. The problem is, from that, you then need the competitive side. And as I've often made the point, and this really is, unfortunately, the killer line, that when you'll realize why Quake will never be a big game again. The only reason Quake was ever number 1 is because there was only Quake at the time. I've always made this point. So as a result, I'm pretty sure if at the time Quake had existed, there was also Counter-Strike and Warcraft 3 and all the rest of it. I'm pretty sure some of the people already would have been playing Counter-Strike instead of Quake that were Quake players. So like, it's unreasonable to think it could ever, like, I don't think anything they do in the game could ever make it number 1, because for a start off, how could you get the basic player base that you need to play the game? So sadly, it's one of those ones where if it was up to me, yes, it'd be a massive game. I am one of those elitists who loves it as a game. Problem is, just in terms of pragmatic business realities, I don't think it's possible. I think the best you can do now is have a cool niche little Quake community and service them as much as possible. And I don't know, if you ever got that big enough, maybe you could use crowdfunding and do something like that. But I don't think it can ever be like a premier esports title, basically.
A few months ago, I got sent some fucking stuff about they were like trying to pin the players down, the competitive players, like some weird fucking exclusivity contract.
Yeah, they're in that now. It's called the Quake Pro League, and you kind of it's like they're franchised players, and you go to this set amount. The reason why it was worth it basically is because the scene was just fucking half dead otherwise. So yeah, it's one of those ones where, like, I'm sure there's probably some aspect to it that's a bit dodgy, but like, for example, one of the best players, believe it or not, in Quake Champions, Claus from Belarus, actually turned it down because he has a contract to play Apex Legends or something. So there's actually
you can't play any other games, even casually, I think it was, like on stream or whatever. And there was like something in it as well, like you cannot criticize the game, not even the game balance, publicly.
Which is hilarious because, by the way, Quake being the original esport, it goes without saying. On the main Quake site, everyone calls, like, literally the main guy who's one of the devs, Sinker, I can't all the time. And because it's Quake, we don't even remove the comment.
So it would, you know, that was something. So I almost thought about getting back into it because I used to run a European site when it was Quake Live, you know, the browser one. But yeah, that's my involvement with Quake. Anyway, Reykjavik on Steam. How much alcohol is too much? I'm guessing he's drinking. You know, to answer that seriously,
called blood alcohol level.
Well, listen, to answer that seriously,
the joke would be if you asked that question, not enough.
Yeah, right. But I mean, like, you're not I don't think I've ever seen you drink to like mad levels of excess. I don't think I've ever seen you like carry to the room fucked up.
First of all, I'm one of those people. To be fair, it seems to be actually a British working class problem. I'm one of those people who can always walk and go to my house and open the door with the key and put myself to bed, no matter what state I'm in whatsoever. Like, I mean, if I hadn't, I'd be dead many years ago. So
of course,
I've never understood the people who live in that world where people are taking them home in cars and putting them in baths and fucking giving them IVs. I'd look chance to be a fine thing, mate. But no, that's not a problem anyway. And then secondly, there's the angle that I personally just in esports never did that anyway, because I never felt like I could trust people in esports. Like, especially nowadays, it wouldn't be as bad. But back in the day, in the UK especially, people were notorious for like ridiculous pranks, like fucking wiping your ass with a toothbrush or something. No, all sorts of ridiculous shit. Like, stuff that's like totally unreasonable, you know, taking pictures of you naked. Like, people do it with their nuts on your face. People don't do anything. So
I'll be the guy goggles, that's some outrageous shit.
I'll be the guy in the corner room laughing, thinking that's pretty fucked up. I'll never be the guy getting that happen to him. Put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm trying to think. Like, I've been in some fucking states down the years, even at esports events. But I'm like you. You know how like sharks, you know, if they stop swimming, they'll die. I just
got that survival instinct. You know,
I got that like weird, like atavist, you know, like atavistic fucking throwback, where it's like I can fucking just power through and deal with it tomorrow. Like, so, you know, I've never been in such a bad state where someone's going to be able to take advantage of me. But man, like internally screaming, like it would have been absolutely fucking out of it. But you know, I think at the end of the day, like I'm not a big fan of vomiting. I think if it gets, but then again, tactical chunder, you know, there's a science to it. The only way you find your limits is sort of by pushing them. So everyone has that one fucking alcohol story where they did too much, you know. Mine came at 12. been fine ever since. Right, butt pounder 420. Out of all the current CS pros, who could smoke the most meth? What is that?
I know it.
What is that?
Well, the joke is, I actually literally, back in the day,
He's thought about it, guys.
I know pro players who did smoke meth. In the days before Adderall was the thing, there were players from the west coast of America who basically used meth for what Adderall would now be used for. Steel plater, have your reflexes be on point, be fucking wired so you can play for a day and a half or whatever. And so some of these players would come to the CPLs and just be awake for like 3 fucking days in a row.
Yeah.
And obviously back then, listen, there was nothing approaching a governing body who would step in and look at it. Like, you'd never know that shit. You'd just see them in a BYOC at 4 a.m. You'd go to bed. Then you'd see them there at 12, same clothes on. Then you'd see them next day. You're like, fucking hell, what's going on here? And all I can tell you is obviously don't take this as advice, but I can't lie. Some of them were fucking amazing at the game.
I'm
not
just
saying there, is it? I know.
Mate, turns out it does tweak you. I don't even know how to answer that because you know, big guys handle it worse. Like, you know, they get twitchy and, you know, the heart's cranked up higher than it should be. So you probably just need a thin, wiry guy, one with no teeth. Do we have any ones like that in CS?
Sort of like Steve Merchant in prison.
yeah, that's what we need. The homeless Steve Merchant is the ideal guy.
How much?
I'll let the community decide.
How much meth can you smoke? How many poles can I smoke? I give a mad go, man.
Right, well,
that's the end of this time.
Unfortunately, for Pounder, this entire segment's all time stamped down.
To be fair, his name is Butt Pounder. Like, what does he expect?
Oh my god, really? So, someone's given a full name. Hello? Am I still there? Yeah. No, we're
right. That sounded like someone being like by the mafia.
No,
kicked down the stairs.
Mate, no, we're getting battered by a giant thunderstorm right now. The internet went out last night as well. We've had like rolling storms.
So sign up to the Thunderdome.
I'll get the last question before I get fucking kicked off. So Daniel, $50 says, should minus Happy plus Alex be considered one of the best roster moves in Counter-Strike history? It took a team who was outside the top 20 globally at the beginning of 2019 and propelled them to an undisputed number 2 spot in the world. Has any other team in the history of Counter-Strike made such an explosive entrance in the scene? I mean, I wouldn't go so far with the hyperbole to say it's the best roster move because it was very obvious Happy had to go. He wasn't contributing anything to the team. His star has faded. We all know, like, he hasn't put the effort in as an in-game leader for a long time. So it was an obvious move, and I don't think anybody could have foresaw Alex coming in and being an in-game leader.
I mean, they didn't. Enough said, right? They themselves didn't.
Which is a role that he hadn't really done because obviously he played in teams with existence at one point, and then he started trying it when that team kind of went a bit awry, and then felt more and more comfortable and grew into the role. So it is literally, it might end up being like the best IGL swap or whatever. I mean, Happy wasn't really an IGL towards the end either, if because MBK and people like that had took over. So it might be remembered as that, but it was such a roll of the dice. I don't believe anybody expected it to be like this. It almost felt like a placeholder thing, and then they went, well, fucking hell, it works. This is brilliant. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. The credit at the end of the year when we're giving out awards, the credit Alex deserves for his development is ridiculous. I mean, what he's achieved is outstanding. It's not an award we have, but if there was ever like, best new in-game leader or something like that, hands down, it's him. But yeah, I think that's a little bit too hyperbolic, even though I understand why you're asking the question. Got anything to add to that?
No, I would say similarly. The problem with that is, like, yes, on paper it was just the one move, but as you say, there was so many extra considerations and things that had to happen. I mean, there's a world in which, if you look at the timing of how long he was in the team before he became the in-game leader, there's a world in which I could have seen them bringing him in. As you say, he ends up being a placeholder. He's then replaced by Kiyashima or Kenny S or someone else, Amanek, someone like that. And as a result, he never would have even got his shot at being the in-game leader. I think that was probably a lucky accident, as it were, that ended up just being fortuitous for everyone.
Yeah. All right. So that's where we're going to wrap up the show. Another classic filler episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, shout out to our patrons that made the podcast possible, resurrected it from the dead. That's our $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Detlef Insomniac, and Reykjavik on Steam. And our $50 patrons, Benakagi Assassin, But Pounder 420, Carve, Daniel Sellers, Eski, Madsen, Marcus Kiumpar, Mike Feedme, Sard Sawar, TC Owens, and Tobias Bernasconi. Thanks for tuning in. That was By the Numbers, and we will see you next week.